Even though Bob Iger has refused to do a company town hall for months, Nelson Peltz and Trian Partners are offering up a Q&A to anyone who wants to ask them a question here in less than a month. Let's talk about that on That Park Place. Hello, I am Jonas J. Campbell, an investigative reporter for That Park Place, and I am joined today by Mr. Culture Casino. Culture, I like your hat, sir.
Well, thank you. Yeah, this is a great hat. You can pick this up over on my website, beachpunk.us. So,
cool. Yeah. I was very excited when I heard about this topic, and I knew that I had to get you on this channel to talk about it. Let's talk about this tweet from Restore the Magic, or at Restoring Magic. This is a website that was live during the original time that Nelson Peltz was engaging in his proxy fight, or threatening a proxy fight. He ended up not doing a proxy fight last time, and now he is back. The website is restored. And also, it seems that there's a lot more information this time around on that website. He is, just in case no one's following this situation here, Culture, what is going on with Nelson Peltz and his recent collaborator in his fight for the Walt Disney Company?
Well, Nelson Peltz is trying to shift the direction of the company. One of the primary ways to do that is to switch up the members of the board of directors. Right now, in the Disney company, the board of directors seem to be too close to the CEO, Robert Iger. And that is essentially allowing for Mr. Iger to direct the company in any way that he sees fit, because they seem to be made up of yes men. So, in order to change it, there's a little bit of a proxy battle coming to them from Nelson Peltz and many other like-minded folks, including one of the big personal shareholders in the corporation, Ike Perlmutter.
Yep. And he's campaigning for 2 seats. He wants people to give him 2 seats on the board. He wants himself and Jay Rasulo, who is a former CFO of the Walt Disney Company, former heir apparent to the Walt Disney Company, depending on who you believe there. But Jay Rasulo definitely has a longer history with the Walt Disney Company and actually running it than most of those board members. They're going for 2 seats, one being Mary Elena Lagomasino and the other being Michael Froman seats. But in the lead up to that, Restoring Magic is saying Disney shareholders, that is the stock ticker for Disney right there, we're all ears. That's excellent use of wordplay there. Submit your questions now for our virtual town hall Disney Shareholders Ask with Trian's board nominees Nelson Peltz and Jay Rasulo. Stay tuned for more info on when, where, and how to join. Hashtag Restore the Magic. This came out today, and it says stay tuned. But if you click the link, which I have, I do have the resources here that I could click that link. It goes to Restore the Magic here, this very specific web page for Trian Partners. I recommend browsing it. He does make some pretty persuasive arguments, in my opinion. By the way, sticking this in the middle of the video, no financial advice on this channel. I am not telling you to buy Disney stock. I am not telling you to sell Disney stock. If you want someone's opinion on what you should do there, go seek a licensed professional who is engaged in giving financial advice. So this right here, virtual town hall Q&A. Submit your questions. Join us on March 7th as Nelson and Jay, Trian's board nominees, talk about their candidacy and answer shareholders' question. What's your question? Please submit ahead of the meeting. We'll try to answer as many as we can. I noticed one thing that is missing here. They don't actually have anything to certify who is a shareholder here. So I don't know how they'll be able to weed that out. And of course, if you want to add one in, you can, of course. Oh, look at this. You can see whether or not you can click whether or not you're an investor, a fan, a Trian investor, a media professional, or just the general audience. It looks like they are wanting to expand their email list as well as they do this. I don't view this as a bad thing. And in fact, I probably will submit a question. There is a lot to weed through here, of course. And as being someone who has frequently live streamed the earnings calls of the Walt Disney Company, it's been a little disappointing most of the time when it's a quarterly call. It's institutional shareholders, which represent 66% of the Walt Disney Company right now.
Yeah.
What do you think would cause that, Culture?
Well, they don't get questions from the unwashed plebes that they hold, in low regard, let's say.
Yes, but sorry, to restate it, why do you think that Disney is held by 66% institutional shareholders?
Oh, well, because the Disney company is held in high regard financially. They are looked at as something of a blue chip, which means that as a member of a proud group of corporations, they're basically looked as the guidepost for any given industry, in particular media and entertainment. Although I guess that's changing because I think they're being looked at as tech now. But, they Disney's been a leader, and they are part of almost every fund that you own. That would be if you have anything invested with Vanguard, anything invested with, gosh, BlackRock or any of
BlackRock.
those other
Yeah.
groups. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah,
And
and
State Street, of course.
State Street, yeah, and again, the idea being that, they can be relied on to deliver consistent results. The problem is they haven't had super consistent results in a few years now, and I think that's why there's a bit of pushback from people like Nelson Peltz. But, yeah, so in order to, have some influence over a company and to make sure that it runs the way you want it to, all of these funds usually put quite a bit of money into each of these things to help your retirement, but at the same time allow for them to kind of control what goes on within those companies by putting in a slate of board of
Yes.
directors that
Yes, and
that would
that board
help
of
influence.
directors is supposed to challenge, sorry, the board of directors is supposed to stand outside of the management level, and
Mhm,
there can be managing directors. That does
mhm,
happen. They can have, one or more managing directors on the board, but generally speaking, that board is supposed to keep the management of the company in check and represent the shareholders' interests as opposed to, the managers of the company's interests, in this case, Bob Iger.
yeah,
Now, the interesting thing here I see is that if anyone is allowed to ask a question of Nelson Peltz, this mirrors that idea that he's tended towards more populist rhetoric here.
mhm,
When Nelson Peltz appears on CNBC, he said things like, if he were when Disney says that, well, Nelson Peltz has no media experience, Nelson Peltz responds by saying, well, if you have media experience and you are releasing this long series of flops in the box office, is it a good thing to have media experience? Of course, speaking to that idea that whenever you sit in a theater and you see a movie that stinks, you can say to yourself, yeah, I could make a better movie than this.
well,
Um,
it also speaks to the fact that he's knocking back the position of authority arguments that are often used by executives in these kind of positions where they're being threatened with a proxy war that's going to disturb their apple cart.
Yes. And I'm very interested in seeing what questions actually do get answered here. I'm hoping that it's live, and I'm hoping that it is Jay Rasulo and Nelson Peltz on camera answering these questions. I wouldn't mind if someone, if by the way, Nelson, if you're watching this, if you need a moderator and you don't mind him being a floating head with a big voice, then hey, let me know, and I'll be glad to ask questions and provide context and maybe even offer a little pushback here, so that no one says it's unfair. Uh, that being said, the last time that Bob Iger did a town hall, it was unfortunately named. We did a video on it. The last employee town hall about 2 months ago. Bob Iger, instead of answering any employee questions, he shut everything down. That was it. No employee questions were answered. He wasn't even in the same place as the employees, as I understand it, which would probably have created a lot of employee unrest. And instead, he immediately went and did an interview with the press. And I don't want to be conspiratorial here, but I believe that he would get different questions from the press than he would get from employees who are worried about losing their jobs. What do you think
Oh,
about that?
certainly, and this is during a time of extreme unrest when layoffs were still being, considered. In fact, they're still being considered, by the way, within
Yes,
the
more on
company.
that. We'll be recording more videos on that very
Yeah.
soon.
But honestly, when you look at it, the employees are going to be the people that they're front facing, they're public facing. These are the people that make your company go, specifically in the theme parks, where the vast majority of these people are employed. And when you look to them, you should consider them like the best sounding board that you could possibly have. So you should entertain questions from your employees, and you might have to be a little bit more light on your feet to dodge things a little more deftly than normal, but it would certainly eh, give some yeah, well, some credence to their thoughts about how the company's operating, and it always frustrates me when that happens. And Jonas, I'm not going to toot your horn, but on the previous thing that you shared, that was a link to your video, which had about 12,000 views.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, when you look below that, you have Yahoo Finance talking about the same thing. They have
Oh.
3,900 views.
Well, thank you.
Hmm.
I appreciate that. That does speak to the fact that we have a very engaged audience that we've been
We
very
do.
blessed to have. And of course,
That's you.
I would want to throw that to this engaged audience. What question would you ask if you could guarantee that Nelson Peltz had to answer that question, good or bad? Because this is
Yeah.
a time for hard questions. Because guess what? People, if he's going to have a seat on the board, I'm going to say this of the current board and Jay Rasulo and Nelson Peltz, they need to be able to answer tough questions about this company that seems to have been avoiding tough questions for quite some time. I will say one thing that is missing from Nelson Peltz's drop down there is Disney employees.
Hmm.
I think that would be an excellent section to add to respond here, because they might have more pressing questions for Mr. Peltz and also Mr. Rasulo there. But of course, I want to say thank you to everyone who has watched to this point, and thank you very much for Culture Casino being here. Go check out his channel. He does excellent analysis over on the Culture Casino channel, including the 6 Minute Daily, which is every weekday, 11:45 Eastern time, and even earlier if you're on the West Coast. That being said, consider sharing this out if you know someone who might be interested in hearing about Nelson Peltz's Q&A, and of course, consider subscribing to That Park Place for all the news that should be fun.
Thanks for watching That Park Place News. For more information, consider checking out www.thatparkplace.com. And don't forget to subscribe, share, like, and send this out on your favorite social media accounts.